Treksploration.
Hello, Treksplorers, and welcome back to Treksploration. I'm Albie.
And I'm Chris.
And we are back. We have a bonus show. We are talking about, oh my goodness, this is it, isn't it? We're talking about the Vulcan Hello, Star Trek Discovery, Season 1, Episode 1, that aired September 24th, 2017. Where were you September 24th, 2017?
I was sitting in front of my television with CBS tuned onto the airwaves there, and I can't even pretend like I'm excited about this. Hey, this is my Vulcan Hello. Hi.
Hello.
Hi. How you doing? Hi. No, I was sitting wrapped in front of my television watching the premiere of the first new Star Trek television show in like 15 years. What were you doing on September 27th, September 24th, 2017?
2017, not 19. Yeah, we're from the 1900s. We had horse and buggies. I was doing the exact same thing you were doing, watching Disco. And I remember that I think I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it this time. There's a lot of promise, and hopefully it all works out.
Yeah. Maybe those kids will just make it somehow. It's funny because we have some viewers who kind of called me on my apparent reluctance to do this, and I was so not looking forward to this.
Right.
And you and I were discussing it yesterday, and I said, you know what? It's time for an attitude change. I'm going to go at this with some enthusiasm. I'm going to go at this with a more positive outlook, and I'm going to try to make like the best, most upbeat show we can do.
Yeah, man.
And I was all for it. And then I sat down and watched the Vulcan Hello.
It might be different this time, though. Think about it.
Maybe you can enlighten me as to how you think it's different. I mean, I don't know if we want to do episode synopsis first. We want to do first impressions.
Let's do.
I'm
first
having a hard time. I need you to guide me here.
Okay.
I need you to guide
first
me here.
impressions. And this is difficult because this is episode 1, but it seems like half of an episode. But they aired the first 2 episodes back to back that night, but they're separate episodes, and the whole series is a to be continued. So where do you stop?
Well,
right?
You say they aired them back to back, and they did, but it was a completely weird marketing scheme how they did it. They premiered the Vulcan Hello. If I recall correctly, they premiered the Vulcan Hello, which is clearly one part of a 2-parter, which like every other premiere since TNG, a 2-parter. Mm-hmm. But they split it up so that you only got to see the Vulcan Hello on CBS on air. And then to see the second part of it, which you could do immediately, you had to go to Paramount Plus.
Okay.
So it was their way to get people to subscribe. It was a way to drive subscriptions to Paramount Plus, which was this new streaming service that was going to take over the world and, defeat Netflix and every other streaming service that was out there. Oh, back in those days when there just seemed to be no limit to the content you could produce for streaming. So it was, and I thought about it because when I was watching this last night, I remembered the episode being longer. If you want to talk first impressions, I was like, "Oh wow, this was not as painful as I was anticipating because it sure is over quick." It was only 42 minutes or 47, whatever they are now. It's 42.
Yeah,
and I was just like, "Wasn't there more?" And then I remembered the whole cockamamie scheme of how they premiered this. So I was thinking to myself, "Do we watch the second part?" And then I firmly, and you can tell me what you think here, I firmly said no. And it's not just because I had a reluctance to do so, but I have to put myself in the place of a casual viewer who they were trying to pull into Paramount Plus, or even maybe a casual Star Trek fan who hadn't watched it in years, but was maybe interested in it, but not like us. Like we got Paramount Plus before Discovery premiered because we knew Discovery was going to premiere.
Exactly.
So, but you got to be, John Q. Public sitting on his couch, the family mundane. You saw this episode. This is it. This is where it ends. Unless is this driving you to go Paramount Plus? I don't know. Maybe that's a good discussion that we can have. Maybe as we do like a wrap up thing. But you and I can't separate it, I think. So I figured just watching the first part to me seemed like a more honest way to approach a review. What do you think?
I think that's fair. I think I was trying to nudge you a few times to watch the two-parter, especially after I finished the first part. And I was just like, okay. Because you got to think those people that were watching it on terrestrial television just was like, okay. And then they're waiting for it to come back after the commercial and it's just credits. And it's like, what? But I'm sure they had like some kind of ad that said, now go see part 2 on Paramount or CBS All Access at the time. Yeah, I remember a lot of people being angry because it was a streaming only thing, and I wasn't angry because I was like, more Star Trek. And what is it, $9, $12 a month for more Star Trek? Okay,
Yeah.
But I'm the guy that has his name in the credits of how many crowd-funded films and stuff, right?
No, true.
So,
true.
But and I always viewed it was always a subject of mine, and I took like a firm stance because people are against, at least at the time, paying for television. But my argument was, if you get it over the airways and there's commercials, you're paying with slices of your life. And what's more valuable, a few dollars a month or literal slices of your life, 15 minutes of your life? And that's a long time. It doesn't seem like a long time now, but at the end of your life, you wish you would have had 15 more minutes. So I'm firmly in the side of paying for my television so I'd see no commercials. It's just ridiculous to just be sucked into a story and then like all of a sudden there's something about some kind of medicine or prescription that's supposed to cure jiggling knees or something,
Yeah. As my knee jiggles. Wait a minute. I forgot to take my jiggling knee medicine. God damn it. Yeah. Well, I think that you make an excellent point there. And I think now, as we're discussing this, it's jogging my memory more because I remember one of the biggest complaints that I heard from the fan community. And this just proved that Star Trek fans are as banal and stupid as every other fandom out there. I never had to pay for Star Trek. Star Trek's a free TV show. I'm not going to pay for Star Trek to watch Star Trek. Well, you paid to go see the movies. What's the difference? It's like, it's the paradigm for TV has shifted and Star Trek is shifting with it. And I have thoughts about all of that too. But it was the first, shots fired. You always like to say shots fired. It's like when you have an aggrieved fandom, this was the first instance of CBS shots fired. This is not my Star Trek because I have to pay for it. I'm not going to pay for it. And I heard a lot of people saying that. And I was just like, get a grip. So, so much coming back. Yeah.
I mean, the time they took to complain about it, they could have made that $12 at whatever job they do.
I guess. And here's the other thing. I mean, they're dropping it weekly. So you maybe subscribe for 3 months. And then you unsubscribe, which a lot of people were doing as well.
There was a lot of people doing that. I've had my subscription since it started because, they were promoting Star Trek going to be all on there. And I bought it like day one where you could and the no commercial version. I think that was all I had at first. I'm not sure. But I've had it steady since because, I can just pop on Star Trek all night. And there's even like a live streaming Star Trek channel on it where they just play like episode after episode after episode.
You sure? I think Pluto TV does that too.
Well,
and
I think with commercials,
LGTV, right? Yeah, they do have commercials.
But yeah, if you go to the
Paramount Plus is a
there's
really?
there's like it goes down channels or watch TV or something, and like there's different ones and there's different channels, probably like 40, like I'm just guessing, but one of them is Star Trek, and you just pop it on and there'll be like 5 discos, 5 Enterprises, 5 next gens. Yeah, it's great. Yeah, so like if I can't decide which episode, I just pop that on.
Yeah, and I like that too because when you're trying to decide on an episode, you're like, nah, not this one, not this one, not this one, and somebody just playing them forces you to watch ones that you might have forgotten about. And I think we've had that discussion, but one of my favorite things was before I cut the cord, they had a station that they called Heroes and Icons TV on my cable service, and they played every night from 7 p.m. to like midnight or more. They played from TOS. Well, they played the animated series first, and then TOS, Next Gen, DS9, Voyager, Enterprise. They played an episode of each
Nice.
for hours. It was commercials and everything, and it was, but it was a way to see episodes that I hadn't seen for a long time, or just to take the choice out of it, just to be presented with these episodes. And it was always a comfort to have that there, because we were either watching that or reruns of Frasier on Cozy TV. And that's when I decided to cut the cord, because I have Star Trek on 4 different streaming services. I have Frasier on 2 different streaming services. And we're sitting here watching SD commercial laden syndicated versions of these shows when we could just pop them on a streamer. So I said to my wife, we're going to cut the cord. And she's just like, no, I said, what are we going to miss? And you know what? We're not missing a damn thing. So
I cut the cord.
And especially now. Yeah. Well, you did it before there were like smart TVs, because you're like a Mr. Wizard when it comes to this
yeah,
stuff.
I'm like a tech nerd. I'm a regular Don.
Yeah.
When it comes to television,
Like
back in the day, I had cable. I had satellite. I think that was the biggest one. I had a 4-tuner satellite, and it would do different regions of the country. And I had 4, if you remember, TiVos. And the TiVos would record every episode of Star Trek that was on. This was before, like, you could just have them all at once. So I had 4 TiVos that were, of course, hacked with like, I want to say terabyte hard drives, which was a big deal back then. Instead of like the 500 meg or whatever came with 500 gigabyte or something. But it was 2 terabytes. It doesn't matter. But we hacked into the TiVos, upgraded the hard drives, and I had 4 different I'd come home and there would be so many new Star Treks, but I had so much hard drive space that I just kept them do not delete. So eventually I had all the Star Treks and I just played them one after another, but it was still fast forwarding through commercials and crap. But then when the streaming stuff started, I was like, this is awesome, because I won't have commercials and I have exactly what I want when I want. And I was on board. I probably spent thousands so far on like Netflix and all that stuff.
Oh, easy. But when, like you say, when you think of what we were paying for cable, and when I say I'm being disingenuous with that. So just a little bit of history of my television consumption up until very recently. I worked for our local cable company for 15 years, and one of the perks of the job was free cable.
Nice.
So they installed a cable box in my house in 1999 when I got that job, and I didn't even think about TV or paying for TV until 2015 when they laid me off. So I had free cable forever, and it wasn't until I had to start paying for it that I realized, number one, what everybody who knew me and knew where I worked would bitch about and be like, shut up, you're paying my salary. But I'm being facetious there. I'm being a little flippant. But the other thing was, I didn't have a smart TV. So you're talking about when it comes to streaming, this is what I had to do. I worked at the TV station. I had to get a lightning cable with an HDMI hookup so that I could hook up. I had a big Mac, because I used it for work. I did a lot of video editing. So I got like the 11-inch or the 13-inch screen Mac, like the biggest one that you could get, because I needed to see the video, right? Yeah. So I have this Mac that's aging that I'm hooking up with a wire to a USB port on my 750 resolution TV, which 720 to me was like 720. Thank you. Which was like, wow, this is fantastic. It was so bright and so clear that for the first week I had a freaking headache because, and you've been in my family room. It's a little narrow. So, I mean, the TV is really right there, and it's not like you. We don't have a wall of TV quaint. Like you do.
I have the Barney Stinson wall of television. You turn it on and you're like, ah! I was just installing a new surround sound last night and the walls were shaking. Anyway,
I mean, but for me, it was terrible to have to go to streaming because it was such a rigmarole. I had to bring out my computer. I had to hook up the cord. I had to switch the inputs. It was like the old A/B switch when you had a cable box,
Still got
when you wanted to, or, Yeah. And so it was kind of arduous. And then when that computer started failing, and it was not loading the shows right. My modem was outdated, so I was having trouble streaming that because, again, I never thought about this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a real, like, the learning curve for me on this was straight up. And I even, after a while, when the computer started failing, I had a smartphone finally. I started to pair my phone with the app on the phone to the TV, but that was always very glitchy. Again, sometimes I had trouble loading. So I finally went out and I bought a smart TV, and I got a new modem that was actually from the 21st century. And lo and behold, everything became a lot easier.
Mm.
And that was also a great incentive to cut the cord. So to go back.
I don't know what is available on cable that's not available streaming now. And I'd much rather pay $9, $12, $18. And, because you add it all up, it's what, 60, 70 bucks a month. But my friend, he's an older gentleman that will not stream just because he's against the whole thing. But he pays $254 a month for cable.
It's insane.
Yeah.
It's insane. I remember when we cut, and I was like cutting down to the bone, we were still over $200 a month for cable, and we didn't watch it. We didn't do anything with it. So I think, again, speaks to the bigger picture of the evolution of TV. And one thing I will, and I said this in the flip side segment that I did when Discovery premiered, and maybe we'll do that
bonus
as an
content.
more. I still owe you the Enterprise one, so I got to find that one. But the Disco one and the Picard one, I have readily.
Okay.
Like, those are right at my fingertips. So I'll give you the Disco and the Picard one. But what I say in that, and maybe you'll hear it here, maybe you'll hear it as a bonus thing, thinking about the way Star Trek has always been presented on TV. Star Trek was at first, when TNG came on, they did first run syndication, and that started the boom of first run syndication programming in the 90s that we all remember fondly, like Hercules and Xena and whatever. Those are the only ones that are coming to my mind.
Earth Final
right now,
Conflict.
But, yeah, there were tons of them.
7 days.
So, yeah. So, I mean, it made a lot of sense to me that CBS All Access would once again go back to the Star Trek well and use Star Trek as the vanguard series for its new streaming platform. And I could take a lot of what I saw on Discovery and maybe didn't like or was confused about, and I realized that the place that it held, not for the fandom, but for the platform, and how they were relying on the IP to drive people to the platform. But once they got there, it couldn't be the cage. It couldn't be TOS. It had to be its own thing. It had to be for the 21st century, and it had to engage new viewers. So I understand all of that. Just before we start this, because when I do my episode synopsis, there's going to be a lot of snark. I'm saying that tongue in cheek. I'm not an aggrieved fan. But there are choices that Discovery made that I understand why they made them, and I understand exactly what they were trying to do, and to a large part what they achieved. But at the same time, that really rubbed me, not wrong, but just made me look askance at what's going on here. How about you? I guess that's a first impression.
The fact that they aired it on television only the first episode, and people were mad that the rest of it wasn't on free television. The way I looked at it was, they're just giving you an extra free bonus. Enjoy, it's a gift. Don't get mad because there's not more gifts. Appreciate the one gift kind of thing. And it's also that, the whole first crack rock is free. Is this episode good enough to get people to sign up and go back? But also at the time, it was like first month free and all this stuff. So, I mean, you really had no reason not to see the second one unless you had a CRT made out of wood sitting in your living room and no converter boxes hooked up to it.
Yeah. True.
So I'm sure that happened to a bunch of people. But eventually you got to upgrade, and it's like, you get mad about it. Some people do, but it's like, if not, we'd still be, riding horses everywhere. You just got to go with what works now and what's easier and what's better. You don't need a faster horse. You just need a car, that kind of thing. Looking back at it, it's rough to see just the first episode be just cut like that and with no explanation or no nothing. I think they should have repackaged it for streaming as a two-parter. but I don't know. But my first impressions are, I would have liked to see the 7 years that happened before this episode, where Michael Burnham was the first officer, and we had Philippa Giorgio as the captain. Because man, I love her as the captain. Not mirror Philippa Giorgio, but like original Philippa Giorgio. She had like
Giorgio, not Giorgio.
Giorgio. I was thinking of my cologne. Sorry. But her gravitas, her just the way she carried herself, and she was very captain-like, and I really, really enjoyed her in that role. And we only get her for spoilers the first 2 episodes, is it? I think episode and a half, something like that.
Yeah, until they figure out a way to bring her back.
Yeah, but then it's not her; it's alternate her, and then this and that, and the other. It showed a lot of promise, but it was not the Discovery. It was a Shenzhou. Is that right?
Shenzo, yeah. Shenzhou, yeah. I'll say it wrong every time I say it.
So we had Saru, we had Michael, and Giorgio, and then everybody else was different. And I was like, I don't remember any of these people. But then I was like, oh yeah, this isn't the Discovery yet. We're not there yet.
Right. It's almost like they're taking a page out of Caretaker there.
Yeah, I seem to remember the episode ending with Michael like in the orange jumpsuit and handcuffs heading to Discovery, but I guess that's the end of the second part. I don't know.
Yeah, or maybe even the beginning of the third one. I guess maybe if we keep on with these rewatches the way we're doing them, we'll eventually get to it. Yeah. So,
but judging the episode as itself, I was quite surprised how much I enjoyed it.
Are you talking about the first time or this time?
This time.
Gotcha.
Yeah, this time I was because the first time I was looking forward to it. I was everything. I was set up. I was probably wearing my Star Trek outfit. Had popcorn, probably had a party. I don't even remember. But this time I was kind of dreading it because I know how rough it was for me to get through it the first time. But I really enjoyed it this time. Really enjoyed it. So that's my first impression. So Chris, Star Trek Discovery, Vulcan Hello, Season 1, Episode 1, original air date September 24th, 2017. Story by Brian Fuller and Alex Kurtzman. Teleplay by Brian Fuller and Akiva Goldsman. Directed by David Semel. Could you give us the episode synopsis, Chris?
I would be delighted to give you the episode synopsis. Another long one, guys. Strap in.
Or strap on.
Open. Ooh. It's Disco After Dark. Open on a planet or nebula or some other amorphous space body and spiral out to reveal that it is actually the inside of some weird alien's eye. Wait, is that supposed to be a Klingon? I think he's saying something about reuniting the 24 great houses and Kalis or Kalish, but honestly, the makeup and prosthetics are so garish and distracting that what the hell is going on here? Cut to Tatooine, Arrakis, where Commander Michael Burnham and Captain Philippa Giorgio are helping save the insectoid natives from a gazillion-year drought by blowing a hole in a well, discussing how they need to stay on the down low so they don't violate the Prime Directive, while totally altering the natural evolution of the planet's inhabitants. Once safely back on the USS Shenzhou, in their sleek blue uniforms, no beige velour? I thought this was the Cage era. The ship is sent to repair a broken Federation relay drone in the middle of a binary star system. But upon arrival, they find a mysterious anomaly that is scrambling their sensors. Without heeding the warning of the Kelpian science officer Saru, part of a prey species bred to sense the coming of death, and boy, does he feel it here in spades. Anyway, totally ignoring Saru's spidey sense, Michael dons an EVA suit and goes flying into the deadly radiation to investigate. I guess maybe the Shenzhou doesn't have shuttles. Michael's comms cut out before she reaches the anomaly. But once there, she finds an odd ship-like structure. And standing on the hull is that a Klingon? There's a Klingon sigil on his spacesuit, and he's wielding something that Michael seems to recognize as a bat'leth. But boy, everything is so busy, and it's damn well unrecognizable as a ship, much less one of Klingon design. Michael tries to say, hey, sup? But the Klingon attacks her, and she pushes off the ship to escape. But she somehow manages to kill this mighty Klingon warrior by sheer chance in the process. Unconscious and adrift, Michael flashes back to her childhood on Vulcan. Turns out that the last time anyone in the Federation encountered Klingons, it just happened to be when they attacked an outpost where Michael and her parents lived. Michael was the only survivor, rescued by Vulcans, and she became the ward of Sarek. Yes, that's Sarek. An irradiated Michael snaps awake. and warns the crew of the impending Klingon threat. In the middle of the developing drama, she inexplicably steps off bridge to call Sarek in private and ask how the Vulcans handled relations with the Klingons. Sarek's advice? Shoot first. Burnham takes Captain Giorgio into the ready room and implores her to follow Sarek's advice, as the Klingons will see it as a sign of strength and earn their respect, and maybe stop an attack. But Giorgio says, not so fast, bub. The Federation does not fire first. And Michael is all like, yeah, sure, I understand. Vulcan nerve pinch. Now, mutineer Burnham goes back to the bridge and orders the crew to fire on the Klingons. But Giorgio staggers out, phaser aimed, and tells Michael to stand down. Michael continues to protest, but the situation becomes moot as a Klingon armada warps in. Shit's about to hit the fan, and cut to credits.
This time, for the first time. How does that work?
On Star Trek Discovery.
Discovery. Very good, very good. How do you do that? Do you do that out of memory, or do you do it while you're watching it?
Memory. Wow. Yeah, because I usually watch them either the night before, maybe an hour before, and it's, especially when you're just doing it, it's kind of easy to boil down. I used to have a hard time doing it. For some reason, I find it very easy to do these for this show. I used to agonize over them when I had to do them for other things, but now they just come flowing out of me. So maybe it's the Albie effect. I have the Albie effect.
We'll have to save all these and put them on our website when we get our website up. That's
okay. Cool. All right. They're around somewhere.
That was good. That was good.
Well, let's not start Vulcan Helloing just yet, because we have to tell people what they think. We kind of gave our first impressions already, but we want to hear what everybody else thinks. So go find us on our communities, our various online communities. The first place to do it is youtube.com/@Treksploration, where you're probably watching us now. You can comment in the comments below, but you can also go to patreon.com/Treksploration. That's where we have sort of our main hub of discussion, or we're trying to build it that way. You can find us on Instagram at Treksploration Pod. You can X us at Treksploration. Send us an email, treksplorationpod@gmail.com. Call us on the phone, 707-847-6682. That's 707-847-6682. You can send us a letter with your thoughts at P.O. Box 542, Bayport, New York, 11705. You can find us on OnlyFans. Is that active yet?
They turned us down again. I don't know what's going on.
All right, so forget the OnlyFans for now.
I guess we're not hot enough? I don't know.
I don't know. We got to do a little nipple. I don't know.
I'm not sure. If anybody knows how to get on there, they keep turning me down.
Patreon.com/Treksploration. That's where you really need to go. Yeah, and we want you to go there and join our existing crew of intrepid Treksplorers, including our cadet, Listen Linda, our lieutenant commanders, Scott Seligman, cosplay dad, one of all, fantasy fan, and our captain, Captain Charles from Texas, Captain on the Bridge. Captain. And you can join there for free. You don't have to pay. I mean, it's a whole community. Patreon is now doing this thing where you can just go on and become part of a show page that you like, which we love. So everybody go there. Thank you for subscribing if you already do. Thank you for supporting if you already do. And you can find some bonus content there and things like that. So
I don't know if you watched the latest episode, but I put our free members in the end credits as well. Not under patrons, but lower down, because they are supporting us by being followers of us on Patreon. So I appreciate that. So if you want to get your name in the credits, just go there, subscribe. If you want bonus episodes, the bonus plans, the big stuff, and the pictures of Chris's feet, then subscribe.
You still have to take those.
For pay. Or whatever. How does that go? Paid member, yeah. You can do that.
Yeah, paid member.
Yeah, if you want all the bells and whistles. But as a free member, you can take part in the polls. You'll get notified, push notifications when the videos come out and everything, and you'll be able to watch the videos and all kinds of stuff.
Cool stuff. Cool stuff. And you can leave some feedback, whether you pay or not.
Do we have any feedback?
We did since we're doing bonus show to bonus show, I'm doing apples to apples. So I saved this. This is some feedback that we got in response to our review of Enterprise Premiere Broken Bow. Everybody must remember the spectacular cosplay that I did for the Broken Bow.
That was pretty awesome. That was literal cosplay. Like you could have made a video of you like making that and people would have watched it. It was so cool.
I still have my shoulder epaulets here. Here they are. There we go.
Yes.
Even the Scotch tape is still on there.
Okay, you'll
I'm
have to
keeping it
autograph
for the
those
next
one day.
Enterprise show.
We'll put
Yeah,
those
maybe we'll send this out as bonus
for an auction. You never know.
Yeah, I'll autograph here. I'll even leave the tape on. By that time, it'll have a bunch of my hair and like other crap on it.
So you can clone Chris. Yeah. That'll be a bonus.
You can clone your own Chris. Lucky.
I have a collection
duckies.
of DNA, by the way. When cloning becomes available, you got to do what you got to do.
Anyway, we did get some feedback from Sugi176, our good friend Damon. Sugi writes, I have to echo a lot of what Chris said about Enterprise in general. The show had potential and was great in how it tried to be different than what came before, while still honoring the lore and keeping much of that Trek flavor. I was in seventh heaven seeing Scott Bakula on TV regularly again. I'm kind of in the same boat when it comes to Archer and separating him from Sam Beckett. Scott Bakula and Sam Beckett are practically inseparable, so it's jarring to see Scott act out of character. And I like how you put character in quotes there, Damon, because, he's Sam Beckett to us. So, I mean, Scott is just an actor. He's doing any character they give him. Anyway, but it's so weird to not see him as Sam. Damon continues, the temporal Cold War plot line was one I had always found very intriguing and wished it hadn't ended so abruptly. I also remember watching the decontamination scene for the first time and sort of shaking my head thinking, well, there it is. Even Trek resorted to gratuitous TNA to try and bring in audiences. But each season got better and better. Such a shame the show was canceled right at the time when it actually found its stride with the fan service and connecting back to TOS, not unlike QL 2022. Great discussion as always. It will be interesting to hear your thoughts on the Vulcan Hello, which, if I'm being completely honest, is a steaming pile of horseshit. If you can even call it a pilot episode when most of the main cast and the actual freaking ship isn't even introduced. More like a series prologue than anything. Chris looks absolutely thrilled at the prospect of going back to disco. Laughy face, laughy face, laughy face. Your buddy, Damon. Damon. Yeah, you were right. I was, again, we discussed this just 5 minutes ago. I was dreading, but then I decided to turn that frown upside down, and I wanted to bring some positive discussion here. So, yeah, nobody wants to watch people bitch about something for
right. I'm going to try to focus on the things I enjoyed about this. And this one had more than the normal disco. So, I mean, it wasn't my favorite episode of disco, but I didn't hate it. So there's some good stuff to talk about. So we're not on OnlyFans, but we are coming soon to the Cyberco. So if you have one of these, look at the link.
Nobody knows what that is.
Huh?
Nobody knows what that is.
They don't know what a Cyberco is?
I don't know what it is.
Oh, okay. It's like a little internet handheld device, like a boop, 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 boop. Anyway, we'll be on there soon. So just look for that if you have a Cyberco. Had a pink one back in the day, but it got stolen out of my car. But I just got this yellow one. So it lights up under light. So that's good. All right. Yeah, so the Vulcan Hello, I enjoyed it, and like one thing I didn't enjoy, and it has to be said, those Klingons. I think, that was probably the first nail in the coffin of disco. It was like all you Star Trek fans that are tuning in to see Star Trek, and we're setting up this whole new big thing. All that other Star Trek you watched. Never mind. This is the new thing, and even now, when I knew it was coming, it's still like, why? Who made that decision and who approved that? And, I really love the special effects makeup artists that were responsible for designing that. And I don't like the design at all, but I like the artist. But they went too far reinventing that. And it's very jarring and very off-putting. Does that make sense?
Yeah, completely. It's funny because I remember when this premiered, that was the second shot fired by Paramount, was just the complete and utter redesign of the Klingons as to make them somewhat unrecognizable. They're almost like xenomorphs instead of Klingons. And at the time, it didn't bother me that much because, once again, I was trying to take everything in the context of the broader discussion of why are they doing what they're doing? Not that they did it, but why are they doing it? And again, it's to make this its own thing, to bring in new viewers, to maybe spark a new audience for Star Trek in the 21st century. I get all of that. And I think that's fantastic. So at the time, with that in mind, the Klingon design actually impressed me in the sense of just how alien they appear here.
Yeah.
And when you think about like a main nemesis for the Federation, it's not just guys in grease paint and Fu Manchu mustaches. It's not just people with the lobster on their head. Now we have an enemy that looks dangerous, that looks like it's made of body armor, that is more reminiscent of Worf in that episode where everybody de-evolves than
Genesis.
Okay, is that okay? Thank you.
think
But
so.
even right down to their fingers, end in these like points that are almost like claws or talons or whatever spikes that could kill you. So making them wholly alien, wholly unrelatable and off-putting and deadly looking, I thought was neat. And then I watched it again last night, and I said exactly what you said. These Klingons, and it is the first thing, because right there is the pullback. Well, it's simultaneously. There are two things happening in this scene. First, we're doing the pullback from the eye, and then we're revealing this alien, and then we come to realize that this is supposed to be a Klingon. And they come back on this ship, and now you were talking about the makeup effects. The first thing that took me out of it was the teeth. The teeth are so big and so clunky that the poor actors in this makeup can't even talk. Like everything is stutter, 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 talk, shark, shark, shark. Like they can't even get a consonant out without doing a because they can't close their mouth. It's so off-putting and it's so unwieldy. It's so awkward. And it just comes through in every scene. It takes you out of the scene. And aside from that, I have always had this problem with disco. And this is the first instance of it and one of the most egregious examples of it. The show is so fucking over-designed. It is so busy. You can't look anywhere on screen without getting a headache. And this episode is the epitome of that. Like, I made fun of it in the synopsis, but the Klingon ships are not even recognizably ships, much less Klingon ships. And I to this day, I've seen this episode like 6 or 7 times, believe it or not. This is not only the second or third time I've seen it. I've done rewatches at Disco. I watched the show a couple of times when I was doing my flip side about it, when I was on other podcasts about it. So I've seen it many times, and I still cannot wrap my head around the Klingon aesthetic. Like, it makes no sense to me. The ships have no logical structure. And what's with these costumes? Tell me what you think about the redesign of the Klingon costumes, because it looks to me that they have like metal breastplates on that are almost like medieval armor, but with like spiky lipstick along the shoulders.
I did like the costume design. I did not like the makeup design. The bridge, wherever they were in that Klingon ship, it just looked like new money that bought an old plantation down south and made everything gold and black and lived in the staircase in the front foyer or whatever. It made no sense. Yes, beautiful design, but it just doesn't shout or say, even whisper Klingon to me at all. They totally redesigned it. If you're going to go that far, why make it Klingons? I understand that the Klingon story, and yes, looking from their perspective, maybe at that time, Klingons, Worf, we have Klingons, of course, but we have all the Klingons from Deep Space Nine, and we have other things. We have the video games where like Klingons are just going, okay, press 1 for this and press X for that in video games, and they're almost became like a cartoonish and not a scary enemy. So I think they probably went in trying to make the Klingons a threat again. And everybody loved the Klingons so much that if you just made it the TNG DS9 style Klingons, there wouldn't be a big threat, an enemy, because we're ahead of the timeline of this show, so we know that they're just cool dudes getting drunk, and wanting to get killed in battle. But it didn't work. I mean, they tried it, it didn't work, And I think that season 2 they gave him hair.
Yeah, and that helps a little bit.
Yeah,
that does help a little bit.
It just went too far. I think if they would have took maybe a step further, but not like totally, totally redesigned. So the one good thing about this is we did get a Klingon nipple. Was it season 1 or 2?
I think that was season 1. And, I guess we're going to talk in context.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about the Klingon titties. It's...
I love when you come up with the name of our episode. Sorry.
And that wasn't even this episode, but that's what we remember. Yeah, we remember.
Sorry, I keep interrupting you.
No, it's fine. It's fine. I'm trying to remember where I was going with that. I guess because, and this is maybe going back to a grand old Star Trek trope, especially in the 90s Trek, where you had an alien species or humans appropriating the look of an alien species. So I'm thinking of like when Gul Dukat became what was his name when he was dating Kai Wynn? But it was Dukat, but it was just Mark without makeup.
Yeah,
and nobody seemed to recognize who Mark was. You look suspicious like Gul Dukat, or when they had the episode where O'Brien and Cisco and I think Odo dressed like Klingons to get on to go infiltrate and find the changeling in the High Council. Gowron's met Cisco before. You think Gowron would recognize Cisco with bumps on his head. Mm-hmm. So one of the central conceits of this entire first season was the fact that Shahad Latif's character was a double agent.
Right.
So to make that work in a current TV environment and to also make it a quote surprise for the audience, which was a big secret, right? They even had a fake actor listed on IMDb, right? Playing Vulc. Mm-hmm. That you needed to make the Klingons well nigh unrecognizable and put so much makeup on so that when you took it off, there was no aspect of the underlying actor to cue you to the fact that this is the same person.
Right.
So that's the only reason I can think that they went so freaking overboard on the design, and it was like the tail wagging the dog. Mm-hmm. So I
forgot about that part. But I remember that being a fun part of that season is like knowing it was coming and following all the rumors and speculation and then finally getting the payoff that we were all right.
Yeah. And was it really such a mystery? And I guess they really tried to kind of.
Well, for me, normally I can recognize people under makeup or masks, just how they are and who they are. But I had a difficult time, but like I stared at his eyes a lot.
Well, it's funny because when I was another distracting thing about this, and I always found it somewhat humorous, the Klingon design on this, because their brow ridges are so heavy, they stick out like really stick out. And to me, they look like, if you've ever seen the old BBC production of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, they look like the Vogons on that show. And I'm like, these are Vogon Klingons, So I was wondering if they were going to read some bad poetry, but. It turns out that all of their dialogue was bad poetry.
A lot of people complained, I remember, about the subtitles, but I didn't mind the Klingon with subtitles. That's fine with me. The makeup, it was too much.
Yeah, and I even had a theory about trying to reconcile the TOS Klingons with TNG Klingons with the Disco Klingons, and for the life of me, I can't remember what it was. If I do remember it one day, I'll bring it back to you. I was
trying to think of it. I was like, did the retrovirus just go too far one way and it's snap back and forth? And I was like, no, this is before all that, because they were humans in TOS, right? In Enterprise, they were TNG Klingons. So I don't know how it would.
Yeah, that's what it had something to do with the augment virus and the different houses. And I was waiting because they were talking about the quote 24 houses in this. And just for the record, I have no clue what was going on that Klingon ship. With the torchbearer and this and that. And again, I once had the threat of it, but watching this episode again, I was just so distracted by the aesthetic that I could barely keep track of what they were talking about, why they were so mad, why they felt the Federation was such a threat, and
why a guy was just like lighting his hand on fire.
He's like, he's just
Volk?
like cooking his hand.
Like
it was Volk.
Yeah, he was an albino Klingon
with no house, Volk of no house.
Yeah,
son of none.
And that's the one that's Shazaz Latif, whatever, right?
Yeah, that's Shahad's character.
Cool.
And
Great actor,
I can't for the life of me remember what was his human name? Why am I Tyler?
Maybe.
Was he Tyler?
Lieutenant Dan? I'm not sure.
I was, I'm more about books, so
yeah,
I'm all about the book.
But he was a good actor.
Yeah. But I
so that's the main complaint of the episode, just in general, the Klingons. But I think a lot of people felt that way. I don't know anybody who really loved the new Klingons. I never really heard that voice out there.
Well, one defense that I did hear, I believe it was Keith R.A. DeCandido, who's a longtime Trek author and Trek columnist, and in defending this look, he said, remember that movie, or remember that time when they radically redesigned the Klingons to the point where they were unrecognizable? It was called Star Trek: The Motion Picture.
Yeah.
And he argued, I think quite cogently, that every time the Klingons came back on screen, they looked different. They looked different in Star Trek 3 than they did in the motion picture. They looked different in Star Trek 4 than they did in Star Trek 3. They looked different in Next Gen than they did in any of the movies. Mm-hmm. So the Klingons always had alterations to their look and evolution of their... Even Worf looks different from season 1 to season 7. Yeah. So... it's an ever-evolving look. It's just that they went so far overboard.
I think it was so far.
Yeah.
And for their ship and design about everything, their clothing, I think what the difference was, this was coming out, I think it was in 4K. I'm not positive, but it definitely was in a different aspect ratio and a much higher quality than Star Treks of the past. So like they had much more screen, and people now have bigger screens than they did back then. So they have more real estate. So it's more like a motion picture where they can add so much more detail, and they just packed way too much detail into everything.
Oh, big time. And this is another thing that if we can stick with, because I said there are two things in this first scene, aside from the makeup of the Klingons, but the other thing that took me right out of it was we start out with a pullback that's a spiral. And this is a thing that they will do on Disco from now on. And they did it like 17 times in just this episode, where the camera is like on a fucking roller coaster. They can't just do a steady push in. Everything has to be a loop-de-loop. Everything has to be a twist or a turn. And it's so distracting. And again, it took me right out of it because I said, shit, they did it from shot 1. It's the first time I realized that even the first shot is just this twist on, the pullback on what's his name? It's not Volk, but whoever the
other one,
the old torchbearers. Yeah, the other one. Yeah. So I that's another thing about Disco. Aside from the overproduction, it's over-directed. Mm-hmm. It's just, it can never just sit still for a second.
Yeah, that must have been a new camera rig that they made recently, because if you remember Quantum Leap, they did that a bunch with the leap-ins at first. And we talked to Anna, and she was describing the camera rig and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And then later on, they did it visually. But it just must be a new tool that they had. And, the younger people are excited about it, or the younger directors coming up. That's just probably one of the things that they learned about in their, film school, and it wasn't like strange to them. Where to us, Archie Bunker, we never had to pull back from him in the chair, spinning 360 degrees while Edith is walking in with a quiche or something.
Well, I just want to defend Anna Amartu and Quantum Leap 2022 for their use of this, because that was in essence their signature leap effect. Mm-hmm. We would focus on Ben's eye upside down, and it would turn to reveal his face as part of a pullout, which was essentially their signature. It was their version of Sam's blue and white leap energy. So I can see them using that, because they used it once per episode consistently throughout the series as sort of part of their signature. Whereas Disco just did it to do it, because, hey, if less is more, imagine how much better more can be. Mm-hmm. It's just... I
think the only time I remember liking it, I'm not sure which series, what episode, but they were like coming in through the hull, and, literally the ship was upside down, the corridors were upside down. So they came in and then they flipped around to where it was right side up for the people inside the ship. And I thought that was a good use of it. But yeah, way overused. Let's talk about, speaking of Quantum Leap, you notice the Quantum Leap guy in this episode?
Yes, James Frain was
James
in.
Frain, yep.
Also known as Gideon Ridge.
Yes.
Gideon Ridge. Spoiler alert. Gideon Ridge.
Yeah, so it's cool to see him. This is the first time I watched it since we've seen him on Quantum Leap, and I was like, oh, that's cool. He seems like a cool guy because I know more about him now. But things I liked about this episode. Now, I have usually I have this disconnect with Michael Burnham because Sonequa Martin Green, I just never buy her acting. In this episode, I totally did. I believed she was Michael Burnham. I never flashed to like she's an actress just reading lines or doing anything. For some reason, in this episode, I bought it.
You say for some reason there's got to be something? Was it a different approach that she was taking? You think it was her direction? Like what? If you could point to just one little nuance.
It was her delivery. It was everything about her. Her acting was really believable. I don't know what else to say, but later on, it's like Sonequa as the captain and not Michael Burnham. This is definitely Michael Burnham, totally different than Sonequa. And I love Sonequa, but I think she did better in this episode than later on in the series. And maybe that's a thing like that happens with all series, like how, William Riker eventually turns into Jonathan Frakes on Star Trek, and it just happens. But I liked her in this episode. Maybe it was because she hadn't gone crazy yet until like halfway through this episode. And we got to say, watching again, I still feel like she was wrong the whole time. And she was completely still wrong the whole time and very wrong. And she's crazy. I mean, any other episode of Star Trek, people would have thought she got taken over by a ghost from a planet below or an alien entity, or she was a double agent the whole time. Made no sense. Still makes no sense to me.
Well, this is also indicative of something that would be a main running theme of Disco, that no matter who said what about anything, anywhere, no matter the rank, no matter the situation, Michael is right. Mm-hmm. Michael is always right. So we're always meant to be on Michael's side because she's the only one who really knows what's going on. She's the only one that has a chance of really getting through this. It's especially glaring in season 2 when Pike comes on after they get rid of Lorca, and every single thing that Pike says, Michael counteracts with some kind of protest, to the point where my friend Rick would always say on another Star Trek show, that Star Trek podcast that I was a frequent guest on before Treksploration, Rick would get so incensed. He would say, if I were Pike, I would just say, can you let me get a fucking sentence out? Like, do you have to interrupt me every single time I open my mouth? This is my bridge. But it is just the way the show has always been written. And we get real glaring evidence of that here with the fact that it's not only verbal here, it's physical. So, I mean, I guess when you have a main character take over the ship, it's usually Data because he's malfunctioning, or Riley because he's got the virus.
Virus. It could be O'Brien because ghosts. He's got ghosts in his blood. He's got to do cocaine about it.
Right. Or they're hijacking or something like that. I don't know.
Something.
But yeah. So that, I guess that's kind of a Star Trek trope. But in this one, she's just flat out insane. Like, logical,
flat out insane. Here. Exactly.
Just logical lapses here. Why would she step off bridge to contact Sarek in this moment of crisis instead of saying, Philippa, I have an idea. Let's go into your ready room so that you can hear this as well.
Yeah,
I think they tried to make it so that, but I think they tried to make it so that Sarek would have been cagey if it was anybody but Michael, because I don't know why. I mean, because Vulcans, like what was so secret or maybe potentially dangerous about him telling her the Vulcans' course of action with the Klingons if he knew she was just going to turn around and tell Giorgio anyway? Mm-hmm. Like it was just to have that one step of credibility removed. It's just because show. It's just for pure bullshit plot mechanics that don't make any sense.
I would have really loved later on if they like figured out a way to make Sarek telling her to fire on the Klingons actually not Sarek, and like some kind of trick that somebody pulled on her or something. But because I don't see where Sarek and the Vulcan Hello, like, did that really happen? So every Vulcan that came up to a Klingon vessel fired on them?
I think they only had to do it the one time was the point. And then the Klingons realized that, okay, you might be someone worthy of our respect. Maybe not a formidable enemy, but not someone that's going to back down. It's like classic bully behavior, quite frankly. If you let them do it, they'll do it. If you stand up to them 9 times out of 10, they'll leave you alone. So
I was thinking from Coming of Age, I think it is, where Wesley he sees the webbed hand of that one guy and he yells at him and pushes him. And then they're friends.
I don't know what
some alien that
hand
you have to be angry at, and then they're friends with you or something. So that kind of similar thing. But I just don't understand the logic because of introducing a main character that is completely insane and goes against everything Starfleet is, and takes it upon herself to commit mutiny, and we're supposed to like her going forward. That was always a thing that it was like, I didn't comprehend and I still don't comprehend.
Well, because she's right and everybody else is wrong. So that's why. Yeah. I mean,
now you're an author, you're a writer. You went to college for things, right?
At one point.
What type of writing is that
at one point.
to where you have your main protagonist be the antagonist?
Well, think about is
there better?
I don't know that. Oh, of course.
That was done right.
Of course. I mean, yeah. At the time, think about the TV environment at the time.
Yeah.
Especially with like the vanguard shows of that time. And I want to say this started with The Sopranos, but anti-heroes were in vogue. So you had Tony Soprano, who's basically just a murdering, reprehensible scumbag, but he's the hero of the show somehow. You have Breaking Bad, where Walter White goes from Mr. Chips to Scarface. That was the elevator pitch for the show. So you had people doing reprehensible things that you were supposed to be on their side throughout it, rooting for them. Star Trek, I don't think, Disco especially, never fell into that trap, but I saw this as twofold. They were trying to tap into that zeitgeist a little bit by showing someone that is not going to always play by the rules. We're not going to have that, oh, shucks, Federation good guy here. This is not your father's Star Trek. It wasn't even supposed to be on the bridge at first. They were supposed to focus on, not lower decks per se, but it wasn't going to be about the bridge crew. It was going to be about Burnham, who was a commander, and then she's ostracized, whatever. So they were trying to, I think, make a difference there. But the other part of this to me is it's just hack. It's cheap manufactured drama to get you to watch the next episode on the streaming. That's really what it's about. So we're going to have this character act unhinged because we know that you're going to watch, in 4 episodes, you're going to forget about this because we're just bringing you, we're just making you reach into the bag for the next potato chip.
Right. The whole wrestling thing where every show is about promoting the next show.
Yeah, pretty much. I feel like this is something that Star Trek also presaged for a streaming environment. If you're going to do it, you're going to create new archetype, new conventions to get people to keep watching. But the weird thing is, it's almost like they're writing this as a streamer that you're supposed to watch back to back to back to back, but the show was airing week to week to week to week. So it's almost like they were trying to serve two masters. Like, we have a weekly show and we're going to present it that way, but we know eventually people are going to be coming to a streaming platform to watch this, and they're going to want to watch it one after the other. And we have to present it in that way. I guess maybe I have this insight now because this is something that we discussed quite a bit with the new Quantum, especially season 1 of QL 2022, because it was a weekly network show, but it was written for streaming. It just was. And that's just the reality of TV these days. They feel like they have to write a certain way, a certain format, where I think a lot of times story is sacrificed to get you to the next aha.
A lot of cliffhangers. It's a serial instead of like a TV show, really. Do you think the creators of it knew that they were going to go week to week, or do you think they were writing and producing for a binge?
I feel like they write and produce for binge because you never know, especially when it comes to something that might be on a network. You got 10 episodes, right? Or was it 10, the original one? Maybe 13. I think they upped it to 13. It was originally 10. And then the show was getting such positive response that they upped it to like 13. So I think that they realized that, okay, we might not have network constraints on this one because it is technically going to be on the streaming platform, but they're going to present it week to week. But I think they were still writing it and breaking story as if it was going to be binged.
What I'm understanding is maybe you're saying they're trying to do something new, something completely new with a new archetype, possibly at least in Star Trek, and hoping that it all works off and it just didn't hit the mark. Maybe
I feel like that they were trying to tap into existing archetypes for TV at the time to make it more relevant to current audiences, and I feel that maybe it wasn't as good a fit for Star Trek as it is for other types of dramas. And that could just be our bias, dude. I mean, we're used to watching TOS, which is episodic, and or 90s Trek, which is largely episodic until you get to DS9. But we have an entire universe of continuity there that we can play in. Whereas this is much more of a quick and dirty approach to it. You're not immersing yourself as completely in this universe because you want to bring, again, the fabled new viewer, the fabled next generation fan, no pun intended. So how do you do it? You try to reinvent the show once again to appeal to those sensibilities. It seemed to work for Saturday Night Live for the last 40 years or however long they've been on.
You gonna go see that movie? Coming out soon.
No, I mean, here's the thing. But when you do something like that, you risk losing the viewers that you had. Like, to me, Saturday Night Live is just, I don't understand the humor. Usually when I say I don't get it, what I really mean is I'm not a fucking idiot. I understand why you think it's supposed to be funny. It's just not funny. When I watch Saturday Night Live now, I don't get it. I don't understand why it's funny. So they left me behind. I'm still waiting for them to go back to the glory days of Eddie Murphy, Joe Piscopo, and Phil Hartman. Like that was my Saturday Night Live. So I can understand where a lot of fans might have been jarred out of fandom over the changes in this because we have other examples that trigger us. But for all that, I don't think this was unrecognizable. I think they tried to do Trekkie things. The aesthetic, even though it was over designed, it was still a Federation aesthetic and things like that. So,
little known fact: I'm as old as Saturday Night Live. So, like, I was born right before it premiered, something like that. So, but I've been watching it my whole life, as long as I remember. But I watch it now, but I don't expect to laugh more than 2 or 3 times in the hour and a half. And hopefully I like the musical guest, but I always like the news segment, weekend update. So,
well, yeah, that's always seems to be where the breakout stars come from these days.
Yeah. But I mean, I found new musical artists by listening to that. I was like, who's this guy with tattoos on his face in a dress? I was like, well, I'll give him a couple minutes and now I like him. So,
okay.
Yeah, different things.
Well, good for you.
But like being at the Star Trek convention, there were so many people that were professing their love for disco. So it hit the mark for some people.
Oh yeah, exactly. So that's what I'm saying. So it's like when I'm trying to think of a show that I guess maybe you can think of Prodigy, right? This is a show that's not for me. This is a show that's for a younger audience that has a different sensibility. And I actually enjoyed a lot of Prodigy. I mean, it got a little tedious after a while, and I can't say that it's one of my favorites, but I can sit back and recognize why they're doing what they're doing and recognize that this old white guy ain't the primary focus They're not looking for my eyes. They already got my eyes, and they know it.
Yeah, they know we're going to watch it
different.
no matter what.
Yeah. So
even if
it's
we're not
just
enjoying it.
Right. I'm the one that they have to worry about least.
Yeah.
So, and you know what? They throw me a bone. They'll do Strange New Worlds, and that's fine. That's great. They'll even go back to the gold, blue, and red tunics just for me. But at the same time, they're always looking to expand the franchise. They're always looking for a new audience. And once you realize it's kind of thing like when I was watching Supergirl. I mean, I love Melissa Benoist as Supergirl. I love the way that the characters came out. But after a while, I realized that I'm only watching this because it's Supergirl. I'm not enjoying the show. I'm not enjoying the plot lines. I'm not enjoying the characters. And that's not the show's fault. The show is the show. But the show is just not written for me. So I can be angry about it because I love Superman and Supergirl and anything Superman family stuff. And then be angry that this one Superman property doesn't speak to me. Or I can let it be its own thing and be thrilled for the little girls it's speaking to and be thrilled for otherwise marginalized audiences that might not have ever seen themselves portrayed on TV before. And now this is their thing. And I feel like Disco does a lot of that as well. I mean, it is the most diverse Star Trek up until that point.
That part I love. I love the diversity. That I think they nailed. I don't only think it's just not because it's not for our age range, because I have a little girl and she's watched many different levels of television growing up, and I can watch those Disney shows or those Nickelodeon shows and really enjoy them. So, and I can watch, the teen dramas, like the Vampire Diaries and all that stuff and enjoy them. So maybe this is just another new thing, and I just got that much older just recently. I don't know.
Yeah, well, and I also think that a lot of this might be hindsight, because I think when I was watching Disco the first time, I was much more excited about it because it was new. I was much more circumspect about it because, again, I was trying to put things in a broader context. And I think I was just much more fanish about it. I was much more forgiving because I was just so excited to have new Star Trek and to be, that sense of anticipation and waiting to see what was coming, even though I wasn't digging a lot of the story, even though a lot with this fungal network and what the fuck are they talking about with that? And
we're not there yet.
How does that work? It's like, how, and now we're in the mirror universe for 20 years. But it was still that sense of anticipation, that sense of it could get great at any time, that sense of this is like we're witnessing history in the making. This is new Trek, and we haven't had that in so long. And
I think part of my experience with it too was I knew the first couple seasons of, Next Gen weren't my favorite as it goes to like the later seasons and different Star Trek shows that did that it took a while to find their feet. And I was always waiting for them to find their feet for me, and they just never did. But I do remember being really hype and really liking it that night, the premiere night. I enjoyed it. I didn't get Michael Burnham. I didn't know. See, at the time, I didn't know she was going to be the main star, and we're supposed to like her. Did they ever? Was she right? And did they get paid off later? And she was right all along, and everybody else was wrong, or is she just was wrong the whole time?
No. Well, here's the thing. I think she's right by inference, or implication. I guess you would infer what they imply. She gets thrown in the brig, and this Klingon armada is now facing down this one ship, and then the Federation armada gets there, and they are being decimated to the point where Georgiou is killed. The Klingons eat her, essentially. And look, if they maybe had just done what Michael had told them to do, the Battle of the Binary Stars never would have happened. So it's sort of a not implicitly stated, but a very, very heavily implied, I told you so.
Okay, so not implicitly stated. So it's not like that Next Generation thing where the captain was trying to prove that the Cardassians had some kind of weapons on a medical ship, and then later on they found out that they did. It was more like maybe it would have worked out different.
Right. Had you only listened to Saint Michael and so and
I,
everything that she said,
I never got that from the story, and it was just this crazy person that we were supposed to like. So
yeah, and you know what? I never really thought that much about it until this discussion this very second.
Things you
So
liked about this episode. There's got to be some stuff. I like Saru in this episode. What do you think about Saru?
I've always had a problem with Saru as a character. I'm not crazy about Kelpians as a species. I don't like their backstory. I don't like the fact that Saru's entire deal for the entire first, half of the show was to run away. And it's like you're introducing a character who's essentially a perpetual victim. And I just never enjoyed, no matter how exotic Doug is, no matter how well he brings the character to life. I don't like the character design. I don't like the character story. I don't like the alien species that he's part of. So yeah, I'm the wrong guy to ask about Saru.
Okay.
How about you?
Well, I love Doug Jones. And I think he's an amazing actor. So many things I've seen him in, like you can, and he does a lot of makeup work, and you can still like get his emoting through the makeup, which is amazing. And I was surprised by the stark difference from later Saru, which is badass Saru. No, wait, what? Action Saru.
Action Saru.
Yeah, that's that. But in this one, he's very timid, very shy, very victim, very bred for food or whatever. Totally different. And so I enjoyed the contrast in the two performances, because it was like a gradual thing for him to get there. There was marks like when he went through puberty and stuff like that. But I think like if later Saru was in that situation that we saw in this first episode and Michael Burnham went all crazy, he would have just like said, put her in the brig and I'm taking command, But
yeah. But I mean, later Saru lost his fear boners and got his badass spikes. He got his action spikes.
Threat
yeah.
Yeah. But you know what?
I mean,
for trying to develop a new character, they weren't just putting a Vulcan on the bridge and this and that. So I give them credit for coming up with a prey species, right?
That's what they call themselves, prey species.
So I give them credit for that because I had never seen that before in sci-fi.
I get it, and the fact that he's somehow bovine is
little chewy.
Okay,
little chewy.
Yeah, little. But I mean, again, they made choices for that character, and they followed through on them. I think with great success throughout the duration of the series. It's just a character that never jived with me. So
okay.
I mean, how about Georgiou in this one? What did you think of Georgiou in this one?
Love her. She's a standout star of the episode for me. I mean, she's the one that I want to follow going forward, and then they kill her off.
Right.
So that was another like fu to people watching. I think, like, because she the performance was great. I love her. Michelle Yeoh, like anytime I see her on something, I buy the disc or I'll put it this, if it's on the thumbnail, I'll watch it on the streaming. I just love her. I think she's really good, and she's beautiful, and I admire her beauty and her acting, and I like everything, everywhere, all at once. Totally loved it. So I'm a big fan. I think I became a big fan from Disco because, before that she was in things. But like when I sat down to enjoy Star Trek, I'm the Star Trek nerd boy going, I love everything Star Trek. I love this. I love that. I love this. And I really got into Georgiou, and then we lose her. So, but yeah, she was a standout in this episode. Her and that one guy working one of the front consoles. I don't know his name, but
I think he might be on the list of guest stars.
Yeah, he was really good.
This also starts the Discovery trend of having people on the bridge crew saying stuff, but not knowing who they are and never getting to know who they are. So I guess it's on brand with that.
Yeah, it's like they're all red shirts on purpose ish. The robot with the motorcycle helmet, that was a little weird.
Yeah.
And then a guy in the background with a 1990s VR headset on. That was weird. Did you notice like one of the people in the back of the bridge was called Lieutenant or Ensign Wheaton? I had to rewind it a couple times. I was like, oh, that's a cool little shout out. I think it was spelled different, but it sounded the same.
Again, if Discovery's taught me anything, it's don't invest any kind of time, energy, or even any real thought in the people on the bridge.
Well, who did we see? Was it Detmer?
Detmer has been there since
before
day
the injury.
One.
Before
the injury, before the Battle of the Binary Stars.
I forgot she got it at the Battle of the Binary Stars. So at first I was like, "Where's her? Did she got her hair down?" And then I was like, "Oh yeah." So like my memory came back on that. And for me, that was like they were just like, remember Geordi had that thing on his face? Can you put something on their face? and then put this one in a motorcycle helmet. I don't
know. Well, yeah. I guess that was the prototype version of Arium, right?
Maybe? Yeah, I think so. Something like that. The music was good. The special effects were amazing. It was too much, but they were good. I didn't like the Klingon ship design, whatever that was. Do you know anything about it?
No, I wish I did, because again, I know that you're trying to have a difference between what was and what is and strike out in these bold new directions. But even when they had the Klingon ship on schematic, like they had the little 3D schematic and they were talking about it being a Klingon ship, it had kind of a bird of prey, sorta, if you squinted, you know, but it was still just so weird and clunky and ugly, and it did not look. But again, they're looking for that alien aesthetic, and because we have fancy computers now, we can do anything. So let's just go overboard with all of this.
I think it was all technically well done. Nothing like looked hokey or fake to me at all. I just wasn't a fan of the aesthetic, but I really applaud how much work went into that, like the whole spacesuit scenes and stuff. Oh, one thing I liked was that one ensign was giving her the weather and was going to land and take off, and when she was Burnham was coming out of the turbo lift to space or something. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah.
I wish they would have kept that tone with the series, but I think that's one of the few times that there's any little bit of levity in the workplace.
Yeah, because everything was they were on mission. And I think that they had a little bit of levity before they discovered the anomaly, when they were talking about the Sentry drone and what might have happened to it and all that. I think they were trying to, in this, the dynamic between Saru and Michael was very competitive here instead of collegial.
Yeah.
And it seemed like Michael was walking all over him all the time because she could. And maybe that's why she was really into hitting the Klingons first, because she's doing it to Saru the entire episode. So she knows she's a bully herself. If you let me get away with it, I'm going to shit on you every time and try to curry the captain's favor. And the captain she'll smile indulgently, and because I'm Michael and I'm right. I have to say, you're asked, what do I like about the episode? I like that I don't hate Georgiou as much as I hate her later in the series. I think that this is probably Michelle's best performance on the show. I've been on record for a long time saying I just do not like the actress. I don't think that she's very good in much of anything I've seen her in, but especially as Georgiou, it is one stinker, clunker, cringe moment after another, especially when she's Space Hitler making quips about killing your children.
Yeah.
And it's supposed to be funny or endearing or what the hell am I watching here? And a lot of times I feel like when she's forced into that role, it's not something Michelle Yeoh is naturally good at. And it sounds like she's reading her lines phonetically. It sounds like she doesn't even understand what she's saying half the time because she can't get the inflection right. I don't know what it is. Because she's an otherwise lauded, talented actor. So is this a Chris problem, or am I seeing what I'm seeing? Like, I think that she's fucking awful. And in this, she's marginally good.
We have opposite opinions of Michelle Yeoh.
In Disco, anyway. In Disco.
Well, yeah. But this is how I feel about Sonequa, and I like the person. I like her in other things. But in this role, I just can't. And it's like, to me, she's reading her lines phonetically, or she's got to memorize and isn't even thinking of what the words mean when she's saying it. And there's that disconnect for me later on.
Another
not in this episode.
bit of heavy lifting in this episode.
Mm-hmm.
There was so much exposition that was backstory that it didn't serve the characters well. It wasn't as blatant as the first scene of QL 2022 when everybody's just saying, I'm me and this is what I do. But every conversation had to put in some kind of reference to a backstory. Like, as a xenoanthropologist, what do you think about this, Michael? Well, I think the drought for 1 million years is going to ruin this planet, but we can't break the Prime Directive.
The
Let's break the Prime Directive. Yeah. And I don't know. What is that? That there's something to describe that trope. What is it?
I think it's as you know, like characters talking about things that they both know that they wouldn't talk about normally, right?
Okay. Yeah. All right.
But like you were talking about Saru and Michael Burnham, like Saru pushes Michael away from the console, like physically. And they're supposed to be working together, 7 years now? Or how long has Saru been on the ship? I'm not sure.
Yeah, Michael and Giorgio have been together 7 years. I don't think they ever established how long Saru's been.
So they're like
officer.
In some kind of politic pissing contest, I think, when we meet them, which is totally different to where they end up. But I was just like, man, how rude. Because like nothing pisses me off more than like somebody like shoving my hand away from something or something, it's just like, that's like a big thing. So.
Yeah, well, it shows you, again, Burnham is not really Starfleet material here. I mean, what in 7 years, the sense of decorum that you would see, but I mean, are we conflating this with, say, even TOS? We're here, 7 or 8 years before TOS. Maybe things were different on Federation ships before. Maybe it wasn't one big happy fleet, as Khan would say. I don't know.
I think any first officer that was with a captain for 7 years, it would have been a totally different dynamic. Like Giorgio had the friendship dynamic with her, but Michael was just fish out of water first day on the bridge, she seemed.
Yeah. I guess this is me maybe making excuses for why things were just written poorly. We're not in the same time. We're not in the same era. So things are a little bit more rough and tumble. I could buy that on Enterprise. I don't know that I could buy that here. I will say this, but this is also just leadership styles. Mm-hmm. The Pike that's in the cage is not the Pike that's in Strange New Worlds. The Pike that's in the cage is a military commander. Mm-hmm. The Pike that's in Strange New Worlds is Happy Space Dad. So we have seen a shift in the Star Trek sensibility from the 60s to today. And I think that, okay, if Disco is going to be a little bit more rough and tumble, it does sort of harken back to Jeffrey Hunter's portrayal as Pike. So I don't mind that, but I feel like maybe that's just me finding connections so I can reconcile all this stuff in universe.
I think we both do that a lot. We try to figure out how to make it all make sense.
Yeah.
That's why I'm a little slow sometimes, because I'm processing different episodes and trying to compare the two and trying to reconcile them. Yeah, that's an interesting observation about Pike. And I think it has a lot to do with, like you were saying, but the 60s versus today, where back then families, businesses, everything was authoritarian. Really, like there was a boss in charge and that was it. And now everything is a group dynamic and teamwork, and you're on their team, you're not a coworker and all that stuff, and it's more of a collaborative thing. So I see why they did that, but I like it.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I understand this shifting, especially if you're going to talk about like a military type drama that Star Trek was, even though they espoused to be a show about exploration. You were still on a Navy ship, essentially. So there were certain sets of expectations of what a captain of a ship would be like back then. And maybe that informs how I think decorum should be on a Federation ship. I think it's much more buttoned down. And that's something that annoys the crap out of me in Strange New Worlds. It's just like everybody's cracking jokes all the time. And it's just like, even in combat, Erica's up flying the ship. I fly the ship. I fly the ship. That's my character. Even when I get to sing about me, it's just about me flying the ship. She's still cracking jokes in the middle of a crisis, and Pike's just like, now stop it. And it's just like,
it has
dude.
It has to do with the captain, and I think that it fits because he knows he's going to either, depending on which part you listen to, going to die soon, or he's just going to be all melty soon. And he knows it's coming. So he's not sweating the small stuff, because there's so many things that as humans we like get so angry about that nothing makes sense. It doesn't matter in the big grand scheme of things. If you know your death is coming, the end of your life is coming, the end of your career, the end of everything is coming, you're not going to care if somebody's doing things like not perfectly, or you're not going to focus on little things. You're going to want to enjoy that little bit of time you have left the best you can. So, and at first he tried to change his future, couldn't do that. And now he's just like cooking dinner for people and enjoying time by the fire with them, because he knows he doesn't have much time, I think. So I think he brings that whole casual, easygoing, enjoy life, YOLO attitude to Strange New Worlds, because he knows he's dying soon.
Now that is some good retconning right there.
Things I think about in the shower, in my subconscious.
As much as we're going to have this discussion anyway, but yeah, I'll save it. We'll save it for the Strange New Worlds discussion.
Yeah,
that's
we'll
coming
talk
up
more
soon.
about that later.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, there's we could go off on another 2 hours on this.
So is there anything more to talk about before we wrap up and then go do other things? Is there anything you want to talk about this episode?
I'm just trying to think if there's just any nuance here or any stone that we've left unturned, because again, for a show that I didn't want to watch and that I didn't want to talk about again, I kind of liked being able to go back and do it with you and to have a more in-depth discussion. I feel like we're in a better place watching this, knowing all of Disco, than we were when we were doing the last season of Disco when we first started the show. I mean, quite frankly, I feel like doing Disco derailed a lot of the momentum that we had started to build with each other as hosts, the show in general, talking about Star Trek. It's like we had to detour into the Disco cul-de-sac. And I feel like we're still trying to get back from that. So I think a lot of what the dread that I had about going back to Disco already with not binary stars, with Vulcan Hello, that I thought that it was going to bring the show back down again. But I feel like this is Disco in a different context, and I'm enjoying the discussion more. So I guess that's something that is I retroactively enjoy having watched it.
Yes. This episode I didn't hate it, and I found things enjoyable, and I was hopeful about the future. So
they fooled you again.
Yeah, even though I know the end, I was like, oh, that'd be cool if that, something there and something happened, and it'd be nice. But
those sound like final thoughts. Are those our final thoughts on this?
Those are our before we do other stuff thoughts.
Okay. So what's next? What's next, showrunner?
What's next? Who was your episode crush in this one?
I'm gonna be purient here. I mean, I've always been a fan of Sonequa. I think she's gorgeous. And irradiated, burnt Sonequa in her space underwear, just traipsing through the corridors in that white outfit, almost like Ripley. That's my episode crush.
I was thinking a little like Lilu in Fifth Element, because it was like bandages.
Okay. A little bit like that too. Yeah.
And that was
either way.
What? Yeah.
No, either way.
Okay, either way.
It works for me. No matter what analogy you want to make, it works for me.
That was a little bit of I think a continuity error, because when she's like in the full body wavy light, she's like wearing panties, like beige panties. And then when she gets up and walks out, she's all covered in bandages.
It's like bike shorts.
Yeah, like something like that. Almost, but she's all covered in bandages. So there's a definite.
I'm gonna have to go back.
Yeah.
I have to see if the beige panties. I didn't think that we got anything in that. Anyway, I wasn't watching that closely. I was taking notes.
Oh, see, I paused to take notes, or I watch it twice. This one's all in my head just for time's sake.
What's your episode crush?
Oh, Michelle Yeoh as Philippa Giorgio. Giorgio. Yeah.
Giorgio.
Like
you remind me of this vacation.
If they had Mr.
Giorgio,
I would get
What'd you say?
I'm excited for Section 31. I'm guessing you're not.
Section 30. Jesus
But we'll see.
Christ.
You might be surprised. You might be hopeful. You might be on the couch with Laura and
No,
Penelope eating popcorn. Can dogs eat
I'm not
popcorn?
looking forward to Section 31. I never make popcorn. You keep saying like, I don't eat when I watch TV. I eat when I eat, then I go watch TV. No, I lie. I lie. I'll have a cup of coffee, and I'll occasionally have a cookie when I have my coffee.
That's the 100-pound difference between you and me. I eat when I watch TV, and that's all I do.
So no, I save all my calories for gin. That's the primary difference between you and me, as you've seen.
Everybody has this thing that makes them happy, and food makes me happy until I'm after I eat it. And I'm like, why did I eat that?
Wow, that sounds just like gin.
Yeah. I think we all have that thing. So yeah, Philippa Georgiou, Michelle Yeoh, 100%. So she's my type. I like her and the character. I like just her strength and her again gravitas. But it's where she doesn't have to be tough because she's respected and she's in charge and you know it. And I just like that whole combination. And she's gorgeous. So yeah, I'll go with her.
Okay, cool.
So what was your favorite part of the episode? You can do it, Chris. You could do it.
When they made the Starfleet Delta in the no, that made no sense. Okay, let's see. What is my favorite part of the episode? I'm trying to. Shit. You know what? I guess if I had to pick a favorite part, it would have been the EVA.
Yeah,
I liked her flying through the asteroid field. Even though I hated the design, I thought the fact that she met the Klingon on the hull of the ship was a neat twist, and I think that sequence is probably my favorite part of the episode. How about you?
If there's somebody on the Klingon ship on the outside, one, don't they have shields? Two, wouldn't they just like turn them on or like repeller or beamer? Would they send somebody out to fight her in hand-to-hand combat?
This is something we didn't talk about again because we have no clue what the hell's going on. They're on this ship. This is like the sarcophagus ship. This is like the death ship. And this is where they're having this council meeting. It was unclear to me.
The whole thing was unclear.
Where were they when Vok is becoming the torchbearer and that whole, your Southern Plantation analogy was perfect. I mean, when they're just in this giant open space that is a ship. I don't know. I mean, this is also presages.
I assume 5. They were on there, right? That's where they were on the ship.
I mean, I guess. But then why are they meeting there on this sarcophagus ship in the middle of Federation space? Why are they in Federation territory doing this? They don't even say.
And why are they?
Why is this ship that is this sacred relic to them just floating around? And why would they destroy a sensor beacon knowing that it would bring the Federation? Were they trying to provoke an attack? Were they trying to provoke an altercation?
I got
what is going on?
This torchbearer that is trying to steal people's wind. I think they were trying to get into a war with the Federation, right? He was some kind of religious freak nut that was like wanted to go jihad on the Federation, I think. That's what I was getting out of it. Because they mentioned fables or fairy tales. One of the other Klingons was a non-believer and was like calling him out on his lack of logic.
I find your lack of faith disturbing.
talking about Kahless and stuff. And that's another thing. They mentioned Kahless, right? So you're watching this and you go back to like the short Klingon dude in the cave, right?
Yeah, the little guy.
Yeah, and you're like, yeah, why are they all this when they're just talking about that dude? You know, I don't know.
Yeah, again, I had headcanon for this and I completely forgot. But
my favorite part of the episode.
Your favorite part of the episode?
I liked the humor. I liked Georgiou. I liked the Shinzo.
Was
that ship. I like that ship. I like the aesthetic of that. I liked Saru. Just little things I liked. And I liked the hope that I had that maybe it'll go in a different direction this time when I watch it through and not the same direction that I went the last time. Or at least hopefully I evolve enough to where I can find the joy in it.
Well, I'll save this for my final thoughts. So
Okay,
it's
we'll
time
do
for a
that. Yeah.
trivia. It's time for
And
trivia.
what else? Oh, yeah, this episode didn't have a 47 in it, but like the two-parter during the same night premiere, if you want to count it, it did have a 47 in it. So
Okay.
that was on the bridge. I think it's towards the end, and Saru says, "Captain, I'm detecting a voluntary antimatter containment breach on the Europa." Giorgio says they're going to self-destruct, and Saru says, "Shields only 47%." And then in the script it says "kaboom." I copied it from the script.
Okay.
So there's a 47 coming up in the next episode. If you do watch it, I might watch it just to get the ending of this episode because it was so non-endingy.
Yeah. I mean, I was tempted, but again, I gave my reasons up top. So.
Yeah, and we need, we only have so much time in the day, and we have lives and stuff.
And one other thing that I really enjoyed was when they get back to the Shenzhou, the bridge sounds are noticeably TOS.
There was so much TOS sounds, and they dropped that.
Yeah, I mean, and they were like authentic. They weren't like recreations. They weren't like. It's almost like they took the sounds out of the sound bank from the 60s.
I think I remember them seeing something where they went back and got the original tapes from the reel-to-reel tapes, the thick ones, and getting the original sounds.
Have we had this discussion about the sounds in TOS versus the sounds in TNG?
I don't think so.
I've always found the bridge sounds in TOS to be so soothing, to be so organic to the setting, and to give it such a flair, such a flavor. And I've always found the bridge sounds in TNG and in 90s Trek in general to be very grating, and they take you out of it. They put you on edge. Like they have a very harsh quality to them. The one that I can think of most readily because it's so prominent in the scene, but it's indicative of the TNG soundscape, is in First Contact when they're trying to disconnect the deflector dish and they're pulling the canisters out and pushing them in, and when Worf or Picard is trying to do it, he can't really pull it out, and they have this you hear that so often, that sort of sound,
like alarm clock,
when they're on the LCARS system, I guess they call it. I don't even know why it's called LCARS. What is that?
Library Computer Access and Retrieval System.
Well, I mean, they need it's almost as jarring as the original working computer sound from
dear.
Yeah. So anyway, that's a tangent.
Yeah.
That's a tangent.
Next Gen was more like, I guess, accurate to what military would be like. Like alert sounds would be grating because you needed to listen to them. Whereas Star Trek, the sounds were just like bing.
Well, they were grating on TOS when they needed to be.
Yeah.
I mean, that red alert.
I never thought of that before, but that's a good observation.
Now you'll not be able to unhear it. So you're welcome. You're welcome, world.
Oh no. Okay, what's next? I'm asking you trivia questions. Is that right?
I don't know. I guess. Sure.
Yeah, because I think you asked me on...
Didn't I do tomorrow? Oh, no, I'm thinking of the Enterprise one. So, yeah, I asked you during Data Lore. So
now I know I specifically brought my glasses out. Okay.
I was going to say, get your glasses on.
Got my glasses, and I got a flashlight. Because even though this camera is awesome and it compensates for lighting, I got to turn the lights way down to get mood lighting. But then it's not good for reading. Okay. I got you for 3 questions. With whom is Mr. Scott infatuated in the original series episode, The Lights of Zetar?
The Lights of Zetar. I want to say Lieutenant... God damn it! I had it on. I think
I read this one.
When you said Mr. Scott, no, because I would. Is it Marla? What the hell?
No, I've read you this one.
Name.
I've read you this one.
You
asked me that one.
Give me the name.
It's about Guinan in Time's Arrow, and it's about the first captain of Voyager. I'm gonna try a different one.
What was the name of the one that he was?
Let's see.
Marlena Moreau. I think I got that right.
Mira Romaine.
Mira Romaine. Okay, gotcha.
Yep. Okay, I'm gonna try a different one. In the Deep Space Nine episode, The Assignment, who are the enemies of the Bajoran prophets? I don't remember that.
Pa Wraiths? Pa Wraiths?
Woo! Ding, 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 ding.
I don't remember the episode, but you're going to say the prophets have enemies. They got to be Pa Wraiths.
Okay.
Right? Which is a dumb fucking name. Think about it.
Question number 2. Why does Captain Picard have an artificial heart?
Because he got into a nasty altercation with the Nausicaans.
Yep. It says, because of an injury he sustained in a barroom brawl in his youth. And then it says, parenthetically, tapestry.
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 But yeah, the Nausicaans stabbed him through the chest while he was playing.
Human played Dumjot. Which actor, this is question number 3, by the way, for Christopher D. Philippus, if you're playing at home. Which actor who played a Starfleet captain played the evil Dr. Jonas in the mind control thriller Conspiracy Theory with Mel Gibson and Julia Roberts?
Which actor who played
Which
a Star
Starfleet
Trek captain?
Yeah.
I think I saw. Is that the one where he keeps reading Catcher in the Rye obsessively? The Mel Gibson movie?
Conspiracy Theory. You know, I have it on Laserdisc, I think, but I don't think I've ever watched it.
I remember seeing it and enjoying it back in the 90s. I cannot remember anything else about it besides the damn Catcher in the Rye thing. But it was a Star Trek captain.
Yeah, so you
had to
like
be in the 90s.
1 out of 6, 7, 8 chance.
Yeah. Why not go with Avery Brooks? Sorry.
Patrick Stewart.
Wow. I don't recall seeing Patrick Stewart in anything other than Dune besides Next Gen.
You know, one movie I saw that it was really good. It was he was playing. Now this was some years ago, and he was playing a guy that was going senile, had some kind of Alzheimer's or something.
Are you talking about Logan?
No. This is Patrick Stewart, and he had a dead man switch, and but he was getting dementia as he aged, and because he looked like 70 when he was in his 40s, so he always played older, but now he's playing his real age. But it was really interesting, and you didn't know what was going on, if he was like really a spy, or if he really would, or you just going crazy because he thought something because he had dementia. I don't know what the movie's called, but it was really good, and he was really good in it. So that's when I learned about dead man switches.
Okay, there you go.
Yes, that was good. So great job. 2 out of 3 ain't bad. That's what we say here.
Not the greatest job.
Nope. You want one more question to make it 3?
Nah.
Okay. Good.
No, you got to take your lumps.
Yeah, you got to do it. Okay. What's next? Trek and Tell. I believe you have a Trek and Tell.
Do I?
I believe you're wearing a Trek and Tell.
Oh yes. Okay. Thank you. See this? We made T-shirts. We wore them to we got them. So this is the thing. Albie asked me to make them up and get them sent out before we met Scott in New Hampshire. And of course, me being me, lately these days, I can't seem to do anything that's not work. So I was, 4 days before the con. It wasn't even a con, before the show. And I had them delivered to the hotel because they gave us a window of when the shirts would be done. And it was from 1 day before we got to New Hampshire to the day after we all left. And I said, well, by hook or by crook, at least there's a chance that they'll come in. And lo and behold, I get into my room at the motel, and the package is waiting on the bed. Oh. And the package, I believe, stayed in the room unopened until the last night that we were there.
I kept mentioning it, and hinting at it, and we should do a video, and it just never saw it until the end.
Yeah, we never did it. We never got around to it. Mm-hmm. So anyway, so this is our video. So we made these Treksploration T-shirts. Now, I understand that this is accompanied by a certain announcement that you have.
Yes. So by the time you see this, we will probably have merchandise at our merchandise store. We got merch. So we're trying to keep ourselves afloat with some merch.
So get yourself a Treksploration T-shirt. Now, I will tell you this.
Yes.
The company that I used for this is the same one that I used to make our Quantum Leap shirts.
Oh yeah, very nice quality.
And nice quality, but I got large because I'm feeling self-conscious in mediums these days. These shirts seem to run large. Like sometimes when listen,
I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
About 3 months ago, Rennie said, "Dad, you might want to switch to triple X." I was like, "Thank you for being honest with me."
Well, this is not about anybody but me. These are my insecurities. But I will tell you this. I'm in this large now, and I find a lot of times when you order shirts online, this happened to me with you, sir. I think the first shirt I ever ordered online was your Weatherman t-shirt, which is still in my drawer inside. I don't know. Did I ever show it to you?
Why didn't you wear it?
Well, because I bought a medium and it's like extra small. It's like,
you got to do that stretch thing.
Yeah, but so I guess in my experience buying shirts online, they usually run a little small. So when I got this large, I thought, okay, it's going to fit just perfectly. I feel like I'm wearing my big brother's shirt. So if you do go to our merch store, make sure to order your actual size because they might come a little bit big or they might actually fit instead of, yeah.
Well, what I've noticed is being a substantial size of a gentleman, that like sizes have gotten bigger. I think it's that whole effect where you try it on and you're like, I can't believe I fit into this, because I'm usually a size bigger. So I'm going to buy it because I feel good about myself. So I think that's what they're doing a little bit, but the quality is really nice. So yeah, get your merch. Yeah. Link below in this episode or the next.
And as for shits and giggles, we put I don't know what they call these things. The
QR code.
The QR code. I guess I made it too big. It didn't look this big when I was doing the design on the shirt. And Rennie did hold her phone up to it. And she eventually did get it to link. It does work. Yeah. So if we're going to put these on, I'm going to redesign it so that this is the actual size that a QR code should be, not this weird giant patch. So.
Yeah, but it works. I think they can be any size. I think she was just too close or something, and maybe the sunlight. Maybe it was because it's New Hampshire and it's not warm there. I don't know.
Here's the question I have.
Yes,
because this is the first I'm hearing that we are going to have a merch.
Well, the OnlyFans thing didn't work out, and we got to stay afloat somehow.
So are we going to just sell this, or are we going to do ones with illustrations of us on it, or how are we going to do it? Because everybody wants to wear our TAS style faces on their bosom is what I'm thinking.
Well, I know this is our first release, so we'll have different releases and limited time releases and different things. And different things we come up with, but it'll be an evolving process.
You're an entrepreneur.
I'm trying. I don't want to start cooking pancakes again. Just saying.
I got you. No, I hear you. Well, I think that we would be remiss if we didn't point out our debt of gratitude to our designer, Scott Madison. Mm-hmm. Scott, thank you for coming up with a fantastic logo. Thanks for listening to us say all kinds of nonsense and for you just synthesizing it into exactly what we were talking about. Mm-hmm. So very talented gentleman, Scott Madison, great graphic designer. He did the Quantum Leap podcast logos. He's done our Treksploration logo. He even designed the covers of the new editions of Matt's Beyond the Mirror Image books. Wow. So you can find all of Scott's work and engage in his services on his website at planetrisecreative.com. That's planetrisecreative.com. So check Scott's stuff out. He is a phenomenally talented individual.
And I think it says it in the credits, right? So you can pause it there when you get to the end and write that down or go there. And of course, we're going to be on the iSibe soon. I don't know exactly when, but it's coming soon. We'll be on the
for the 4 people out there who know what the hell that thing is. I hope they're all as excited as you are.
Okay, we're going to be on the Cyberco soon, so look for that. Okay, my Trek and Tell. It's so champagne problems. Is that what they call it or whatever? There's so many things I want to show. I know I got over 900 Star Trek things. Right. Obviously. But I went to grab a plate tonight and it's a plate from Voyager. It's a Star Trek Voyager plate. Right. And I want to show it off, but I'm like, why don't I just wait till we get to that episode? It's like a season 1 episode of Voyager. So I should wait
there eventually.
Yeah. But I want to show it off, but So I just grabbed stuff. I don't have too much disco stuff. I think I've already shown all my disco stuff.
You showed, yeah, I think you showed the Burnham. You have a Burnham doll, right?
I do. So this is what I'm showing tonight. I don't think I showed this yet. This is not the puzzle book. This is a jigsaw puzzle.
Oh, okay.
And let me get my glasses on because this text is really large. 1,000 pieces FX Schmid puzzle. No clue what that means. Maybe that's the brand. But it's 1,000 pieces, and it's total TNG. Let's see, part number 925, 90025. Let's see what year this came out. I'm thinking early 90s. Yeah, 1993. All right, and it's 26 and a half by 17 and a half inches for the U.S. Listeners, and for everyone else, it's 67.5 times 44 centimeters.
I mean, you're moving it around on camera. It's a little blurry to me, even though it's not blurry to people watching on YouTube.
Right.
It looks like the D. It looks like there might be a Romulan and a Ferengi down bottom somehow.
Yeah, it looks like Ferengi, Romulan, maybe a Bionar. Let me look. Yeah, a single Bionar, which is weird.
Well, the other one died at the Battle of the Binary Stars.
Cardassian, the lizard people. Romulan, Ferengi, fish dude. Who was that rock star that was a fish dude?
Mick Fleetwood.
Mick Fleetwood right here.
I love that episode. That episode is fantastic.
And then I think Martok from Professor Freeze's episode coming up. Data, Geordi, Beverly, Guinan, Pakled, Borg. Looks like very sexy Klingon. Like he's trying to be sexy, like Instagram Klingon, I'll say. This one, I want to say it's a time traveler from Captain's Holiday. One of them.
Wow, that's a deep cut.
Yeah, right. Puzzle. And then, of course, the Nausicaan that stabs Picard.
Picard.
And, yeah, it's mirrored. And then the last one is Darmok and Jalad Tanagra guy.
Who's dead? Paul Winfield.
Yes. And then we got
the late great Captain Tyrrell.
Then we got Troy, Worf, Picard, Riker. So pretty good for a puzzle. And there was a problem though. I got it at the thrift store. So I wasn't sure it had all the pieces, but I bought it anyway because it's cool looking, right?
That was my next question. Is it open and have you done it?
It is open. I have not done it yet, but I was worried, right, that it wouldn't have all the pieces because sometimes you buy a puzzle at a thrift store. I've done it before and it's missing one or two. And, you know, I don't know if it's people donate it like that or it's just jerks in the store taking out a piece just to mess with people. But like about 3 weeks later in a different thrift store, I found a second one.
Of the same one?
Of the same one. Hold on.
Now, I think it would be phenomenal if the same pieces were missing from the two different puzzles. There's got to be math that somebody out there can do on that. So 1,000 pieces in each box. What are the odds that the same pieces are missing from each box?
Right. So I think I should.
All you sciencey Star Trek nerds out there, give me the odds. No, I'm not Han Solo. I want to know the odds.
Well, there's definitely pieces missing now because they just like 30 of them just fell on the floor. So that'll be interesting. so I know I'll start with this as my base puzzle. And then I'll get a broom and a dustpan if I'm missing pieces out of this one. But I like when people donate them, they put them back in a Ziploc bag, you know. So, but it is what it is. But that's pretty cool. 1993 Star Trek Next Generation puzzle. So
cool.
That's what I have.
If I had any kind of disco, even if I had like a disco ball, I have nothing disco related, Star Trek or otherwise.
I thought about putting a disco record up there, but I got my Tortured Poets Society thing up there. So, anyway.
Like the Vogons Klingons.
Exactly.
And it all comes full circle. Tortured poetry.
So that's my Trek and Tell for today. So now any thoughts, wrap ups we forgot to talk about or things we wanted to talk about, didn't quite get out for this episode, and then final thoughts and ratings. So any cleanup, anything that like you wanted to talk about that you didn't get to?
I can say this, upon watching this by itself, I hated the uniforms like I never have before. And I think that maybe because the first time I watched the show through, they were new and they were weird, but okay, again, they're doing their own thing. I was really taken aback by the fact that they weren't doing the blue, red, yellow color scheme, right? But then I realized, okay, maybe this is just what the uniforms look like, even though in Pike's ship it's different. So they made it so that only the Constitution class ships had those tunics, which is fine, I guess. And this will cycle into my final thoughts. The first time I rewatched the first 2 seasons of Disco, it was during my first chronological rewatch of the entire Star Trek franchise. So I literally was just coming off of Enterprise. I watched Enterprise up until the last episode because that takes place in the future. And or no, and I didn't watch Mirror Darkly either because I wanted to watch that after Tholian Web. But I still, to this day, have not watched the final episode because I want to slot it in when we watch the Pegasus episode of TNG.
Right. Oh, and I'll send you that edit I did.
Okay. So I went from, I guess, Archer hugging T'Pol at the inauguration of the Federation, basically, to watching The Cage, and then I watched Disco. And in the context of seeing the blue uniforms from Enterprise, which I absolutely love, and then going to these uniforms, it almost seems like it fits more into chronological continuity, that they would still have some measure of a blue uniform, that even though they didn't have the Delta back in Enterprise times because there really wasn't a fleet yet, they call back to the Pips, but they're on the Delta. And I realize, again, this is all just a mishmash of everything. Get it? It's Star Trek. It's Star Trek. Get it? Get it? But within the context, in that context, I could appreciate the uniforms more than I did. And I guess this is sort of my final thought, in the sense that I have so much trepidation about rewatching Discovery because I just got so tired of it. And I every time I tried to reinvent itself, I was excited again, only to be let down. So by the time we rolled around to the 5th season, it literally was just a chore getting through the end of the series. And you said it yourself, you hated it. I mean, you were not a fan of the show. Yeah. And neither was I at the end. But then I go back and I watch these episodes with that feeling of dread. And then I remember, while I didn't especially enjoy them, I didn't hate them as much as I felt going towards the end of the series. And I don't know why. I don't know why I had that hate. I think I was just done with Disco. Maybe I had fan fatigue. Maybe it was the whole reason why they said Enterprise failed. I don't know. But watching these first 2 seasons in the chronological rewatch, I found a lot that I enjoyed. And I was glad that I was able to get back to that place so that we could talk about it together, because again, doing the season 5 episodes kind of left a bad taste in my mouth. And I really thought we were going to bring the show down again because we just were not having a good time. I had a surprisingly good time watching this episode, and I had a surprisingly good time talking to you about this episode because, there's a lot to unpack, and it's things that we didn't really get to talk about when we were talking about the 5th season because it had become a completely different Discovery at that point. So it's good to sort of go back to the roots. And if we are going to keep doing these bonus shows in order, I won't be as bummed to know that Battle of the Binary Stars is coming next, because I feel like we have a different basis of discussion now. So I guess that wraps it up for me. How about you?
I I liked the uniforms at first when I first started watching it, talking about the uniforms, what you're talking about. Watching it this time, they look less impressive. To me, they look like they ordered them from eBay from China. Even though they're all custom made by, designer, clothing, costume department, and everything. And they use new techniques with screen printing on the fabrics, and there's deltas everywhere. I mean, it got to the point where I think it's on the bottom of their shoes, like everywhere they could put a delta. It's almost like they hired the production designer, or not the costume designer, and they weren't like familiar with Star Trek, but they said, let's put Star Trek everything, Like, I'm surprised Michael Burnham's bandages didn't have deltas on them. But so it was a little weird because I think the uniforms got better later on. But that the thing that like took me out of it a little bit with the uniforms was the comm badges matched the gold or the silver on their uniform, which I thought was strange. Because
and they weren't comm badges; they were just mission patches.
Yeah,
they should have been
the whatever they are. The delta,
even though it's not a patch, it's metal.
Yeah, but like the Saru had a silver one because it went with his silver sides, and Burnham had a gold one, and
I didn't know
Giorgio had a gold one. Yeah, so well again, 135-inch screen versus.
Gotcha.
Yeah. But so I was like, that's weird. I don't remember that. That was weird. But I guess going into final thoughts, did you give a rating or is that later?
No, I didn't give a rating. I guess I'm going to give this a solid 3 Kelpian fear boners out of 5.
You stole mine. I was going to go with threat ganglia. Threat ganglia. Okay, I will think of something else. I didn't hate it. I enjoyed it. It gave me a sense of hope. Like maybe this time I'll enjoy it. I did enjoy Sonequa's performance, but halfway through when Burnham goes crazy, I start hating Burnham again because she's just a horribly written character. And I understand Sonequa taking the job because it's a job, but I don't understand the writers writing a character that we're not supposed to like, and there's no way for us to like it. And I think it's unfair to Sonequa, it's unfair to the show, it's unfair to all of us. The same complaints I've always had, I think. But I liked it, and I actually I want to go watch. I want to go watch part 2. So it's got me excited a little bit. But what else? I might watch. What was it? Double Indemnity? You recommended? Saw it a long time ago.
Oh my god! Yeah. Wow. We're getting back to what's shaking dicks.
Yeah. That line kills. Every time somebody hears that line kills, by the way.
Yeah, because how many shaking dicks do you give it?
Yeah. There you go. So, what do you do? 3.5?
I did 3, and I think that's a little generous, but I'm feeling generous. I'm feeling up because of our conversation.
I'll go 3.5.
I'm sorry, I stole your silly object.
I'll go 3.5 sarcophagi.
Gotcha.
Yeah. I didn't hate it. Loved Michelle Yeoh in it, and it was done well. I mean, it's not as good as the other pilots of the other shows by far, but it was a good episode. I didn't hate it. There was no moment where I got bored, looked at my phone, or wanted to not finish watching the episode. So, that's something.
All right. Well, thank you, Albie, for those thoughts. And the sarcophagi, I think, says it all, though. So it's a little damning with faint praise. But we want to hear what all of you listeners out there, all of you viewers out there, think of the Vulcan Hello. Have we changed your mind on it? Has this discussion influenced how you might reapproach disco? Let us know. You can find us at youtube.com/@Treksploration, and you can leave the comments below right here on the YouTube channel. You go to Patreon, to our fan community over there, patreon.com/Treksploration. Instagram us at TreksplorationPod, X us at Treksploration, email us at TreksplorationPod@gmail.com. Call us up on the blower, 707-847-6682. That's 707-847-6682. You can get us at P.O. Box 542, Bayport, New York 11705. That's PO Box 542, Bayport, New York 11705. And let us know what you think. We will read your comments on an upcoming episode of Treksplorers.
Yeah. Who wants to be the first voicemail to be played on the show?
Right? I don't think we've had one yet. We used to get a couple of regular callers for QLP.
Yeah.
But so far, we haven't gotten any voicemail.
Yeah, Tom, give us a call.
For Treksplorers.
How's my dad? Let us know how you're doing.
Yeah, Tom, our thoughts are with you. I don't know how personally we want to get here, but Tom recently had some health issues, and he's in our thoughts. So
yes,
we're happy that you seem to be doing okay, and we're happy that you're still listening. And you'll always have a home here on Treksploration.
Yes,
you'll always be Lieutenant Commander Tom to us.
Yes,
cosplay dad.
And remember, we're coming to a cybercode near you.
Yes.
So coming up.
I love how you're just not breaking the illusion that that's just a useless piece of junk now that nobody uses. You're the greatest.
Coming up, the next TNG that we're doing is season 1, episode 14, Angel 1, where we get to see
Angel 1,
Riker's chest a bunch and some tough looking broads.
Yeah, them broads got moxie, dicks.
The whole planet's got moxie. So I'm excited to talk about that one. And we get to see what was Data's child's name?
Lore.
The other
Lol.
We get to see the actor who played Lol in Angel 1. So be on the lookout for that. And the next bonus show we do, what are we doing here, Chris?
I screwed up. On the rundown, I wrote Strange New Worlds episode 1 because I was thinking Disco and Pike, but I believe that Picard season 1 premiered before Strange New Worlds, did it not? So we should be doing Picard season 1, episode 1.
No, actually, I figure we'll do Picard after TNG and the TNG movies because we're going to run out of TNG sooner than anything else because we're doing that, a few times a month, whereas the other ones we're doing once every so often, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, something like that.
I suppose that makes sense.
So now technically, the next one in rotation is short treks.
Oh, we're going to do short treks?
I know there's a couple short treks we could probably get a couple hours out of, but I don't know about all of them. So what do you think? Are we going to dismiss that and include that with other things? Or are we going to do short treks? Or the one after short treks is Lower Decks?
Because I think I'm completely screwing up the continuity timeline here. So I guess it is Lower Decks. I'm going to leave that up to you. I'm happy to discuss some short treks. I didn't like them all. If you want to do short treks, why don't we recommend that we do them just once and discuss one that we like and one that we don't like, and that'll be 4 of them, 4 5-minute segments. We can get an hour out of that. We can get an hour out of 1 5-minute segment. You know us.
Okay.
But would that be acceptable to you? Like
Maybe.
the one you like the most and the one you like the least. And then we can just generally talk about the entire short trek oeuvre.
I love that word. I can't say it, but I love it.
I can't say it, but it doesn't stop me from trying.
I think here's my thought. I would love to do short treks, and it might be something we can plug in there here and there. Like short treks were to just randomly put up and out. But we have very soon, Lower Decks coming out. So I think in another week's time.
So we're going to be doing Lower Decks in real time.
I think so. So that affects things. So should we do episode 1 of Lower Decks, or should we do short treks and then Lower Decks in real time?
No, I think we should do episode 1 of Lower Decks as our first bonus episode.
Okay.
Because it'll help put context to our reactions to this 5th season. I feel.
Okay.
All
right. And I got a lot of Lower Decks merch.
I bet. I mean, there's probably tons of it. And just sneak peek, I am all over the map with Lower Decks. I mean, I to this day, I still don't know what I think of the show. So it'll be an interesting exploration.
I'm a huge fan. I bought the t-shirts. I got the Funko Pops. I got all the stuff. So
Cool.
DVDs, Blu-rays, whatever they're. Okay, so
all right. So then, what's the premiere episode of Lower Decks? What's it called?
Second Contact.
Okay.
It starts off with Boimler doing the captain's log, and he's like, "Yeah, that's not us. We come by after that happens." You know.
Gotcha.
It's got a pretty strong Bathleth opening, so I think that'll be fun to talk about.
Okay. Neato. So
right.
You're holding up your
we'll finally find out how the universe exists on the back of a koala.
I guess it's no more ludicrous than being on the back of a turtle. For all you Discworld fans out there. Yes,
all the way down.
So I enjoyed my time with you. Thank you. You made my day, Christopher.
Thank you. You made my night, Albie.
Thanks for staying up late with me. And for Treksploration, until next time, I'm Albie.
And I'm Chris.
And we'll see you next time.
Vulcan, goodbye.